speaker of the morning is Miss Patti Rydlun. Patti is a speaker who cherishes her years as a teacher. Teaching has been, and continues to be, a major influence in her life. Today, she is going to tell us about everything she learned teaching the 4th grade. Please welcome Patti to the lecture. Patti, I didn't see how long your speech was.
Oh, 14 to 16.
Thank you.
The best way to learn something, to remember something, and to remember it forever is teaching. If you teach something, you have to know it like the back of your hand, and you have to present it and make it clear to everybody in your audience. And I was reminded about how much I liked teaching when we were at UNCW a couple days ago. And I realized that what I learned from teaching has served me. Teaching the 4th grade is special. And what I learned from that served me for any career I've tried to do and been successful at. And it served me in life. And the 3 skills that I'm going to tell you about today that I learned from teaching the 4th grade are organization skills, communication skills, and interpersonal skills. And I was going to do a totally different speech, but after I was at UNCW, I was lit up, and I remembered how much I loved teaching. I left with a high, and when I got into my car, I just remembered everything about teaching that I loved. The thing about UNCW is we had this interactive, there were 9 of us there, it was interactive, and the students there wanted to learn to speak better. Their enthusiasm was so great, and what we did was so great because we did a meeting and at the same time we taught everything. So for the introduction, Eric did an introduction and then the students did theirs and we guided them. The speeches were phenomenally great because they gave a speech, but the speech taught the very content about how to give the speech. We had table topics, and that was fun. We had a timer, we had everything, and then I have to say, I was a and grammar person, and it was a lot of fun. And at the break, one of the students came up to me and said, I want to talk to you about something. Well, she just turned, she was right in front of me. And this one conversation turned into a group conversation. And that conversation went from, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many ums I say. I wish my teacher would take a Toastmaster course. and it graduated to women in corporate life still not getting the credit or the pay they deserve. Then they asked me how I did, so we talked about that. So it was just so wonderful to be with these enthusiastic young adults, including Evan, who sat to the right of me, who said, I'm madly on here trying to get in touch with my mother because you're a clone of my aunt. And I was like, okay, thank you. But that's what's so great about being with young people like that. And I remembered when I left teaching, I thought I was not smart enough, not good enough, because I was in corporate and they were all seasoned editors, writers. It was an educational publishing company. So I didn't go too far from teaching. But I didn't think I was good enough. So the first couple months, you're learning everything. And I happened to, providentially, spot this article in the New Jersey Star-Ledger. And the title said, Xerox Executive Thanks Teaching. And I was like, all right, I have to check that out. And what he said there was, he was a successful executive in Xerox because of teaching and what he learned teaching the 4th grade. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a gift from the heavens. It's just what I needed to hear and to read. So I went into work with a whole new attitude. And then one day I came home and I had a letter from a former student who I taught in the 4th grade. And she said, I'm writing to you because I heard the news that you are thinking of leaving teaching. And I can't believe that you would even entertain that. She was a senior in high school now. That you would entertain that idea and cheat all the other students who are following. So of course I'm crying at this. And I had just made my decision the day before I got that letter to stay in corporate. So I went into my boss and I showed him the letter, and he was like, "I'm so glad she sent you the letter the day after." But it was such a testimony and such a payback that I still get from the students in the 4th grade, because I've gone to weddings. One of them watches my Facebook Live every day and shares it. She went on vacation and had her whole group of people on vacation with her watch me on Facebook Live. So now I have like four new followers. So that's the payback for me from teaching, that I have these wonderful memories of teaching, and that all these relationships are so solid in my life 30 years after leaving teaching. But the 3 things I learned, the organization, the communication, and the interpersonal, just govern my whole life. So when I say organizational skills, you cannot walk into a classroom of 30, 9, and 10-year-olds and not be organized. Before you even begin to teach, you have your administrative tasks. The salute, attendance, milk money. We still have little milk breaks when I taught school. Lunch, notes who are absent, notes who are people who are going to be absent. Then you look at your plan book and you have everything mapped out, and it never, ever goes the way it's supposed to, because something happens. Somebody will throw up in the 4th grade, then you have the poor kid who was upset about something. I actually had one young kid, he like a little pee in the back, and the kids came over, and I just like ignored it and said, "Okay, let's go outside and play." And then you had to comfort him, and so everything happens because you're not just a teacher. You're a nurse, you're a mother, you're a counselor, but I loved it all. The second part of organizational skills is your time management, right? Where you have to make sure that you're going to get everything included in that day. And if not, then you've got to figure out how you're going to catch up the next day and the next day and the next day. And then your last organizational skill would be record keeping. You have to make sure you know exactly where each child is, how they're doing, test them, keep the grades, and everything has to be justifiable. And then if you have to refer children for extra help, you have to keep track of that. Then you have to keep track of getting a report from that person. So you're keeping track, record keeping. So you're pretty organized, record keeping, on task. Second, communication. Communication, you have to be, I think it's so funny when people say, when you give a speech, you have to be really clear and know your audience. You better know your audience of 9 and 10-year-olds, and you better be able to make everything clear for them. I read this quote, which I think only the woman was trying to make her point, and she said that teaching is 1/4 preparation and 3/4 drama. So it is always drama, and that's what one of the young students yesterday, a couple days ago, said to me. She said, how would you be at college? I said, I think that, my philosophy is everybody should teach the 4th grade for 1 year, because if you want to get your point across, you have to be animated. You have to be dramatic. You have to think of a new way. They don't get that first example, you have to give them another example. They don't get that analogy, you better give them another analogy. And all that is at your fingertips after a while, because you see that look on their face. You plan this whole wonderful lesson, and then you get in there and you have 30 faces like this. And you say, okay, that lesson didn't work. Maybe it worked last year, but it doesn't work with this group. So you've got to come up with something new, because I want to see the light in everybody's eyes, that they go like, oh, I get it. And that's your whole goal, to get that look in their eyes and for them to say, I get it. So that's communication. And your communication includes writing, and it includes sandwiching. When I first started Toastmasters, I was semi-amused because they talked about sandwiching, like you give a compliment, you tell them what they need to do, and then you give them another compliment. Well, I learned that when I was 21 years old in my first report card time, because there weren't computers, you had to write everything out for each student, and you'd always have sometimes at nights I would be like, what can I say about this child? It's good. He's so good with animals. You had to think of something, and then say, okay, but he's not getting his work in on time, he's not doing this, he's not doing that. And then your writing skills also had to be so clear, not only when you were explaining things to the students, but to the parents, to the administrators, to everyone else. So my communication skills were good. And the last thing I want to say about communication is when you teach, you have to listen for the gold. When you listen for the gold, I used to think I was changing their lives, but I changed my life. Because the gold in a student, you have the quiet kid in the corner, and you want to listen to the gold from that child, because it's there. It's in every child in your classroom. And sometimes you're amazed how compassionate and kind and good they are. And the last one is interpersonal. The interpersonal skills, there are two things I really want to leave you with. Really, really, really. Really. The first one is authenticity. The thing about fourth graders, you cannot get away without being authentic. They will see through you in a second, they will call you on your game, and then they will never listen to you. You've lost their listening because you're a phony. And it's innate in all of us to be authentic and to recognize it. You can see it in babies who are 3 and 4 years old. And they're so great. They don't have it couched. Fourth graders still don't have it couched in the adult, I'm going to keep it to myself or do something. They just say, well, you said the other day that we could do this. I'm like, oh, yes, you were right, hon. We will do that. And when I used to teach them this snow dance, because I used to say, if you're happy with a snow day, think how happy I am. So I taught them this crazy little dance I made up. And this one time we came in, Mr. Browski, you said if we did the snow dance, we wouldn't have snow. Who here did not do the snow dance? And luckily, whenever that happened, one little kid would go, so sorry. But, I mean, that's a funny story, but seriously, you have to be authentic and do what you say and say what you mean. And you know what? Once you do that, they're yours forever. The second thing I want you to remember about interpersonal skills is loving, ruthless compassion. No matter what you do in the classroom, it always has to come from love and compassion, because you never, ever know what's going on in that home. I could write about 3 books about the things that kids told me about what went on. Funny, sad, beyond just sad. And as a teacher, you have to have compassion for them. And you have to be ruthless. Ruthless in you being responsible and accountable for them and demanding that from them, so that they know whatever they go through, they will get through it. And they have the loving support, I always told them, of me, no matter what. Sometimes teachers are the only people that stand for those children. Sometimes a teacher is the only one a child can go to. So those are the two things I really want you to remember about interpersonal skills. And you can see how all of that serves me in my life. I'm super organized, as my cleaning lady told me. You are the most organized person I have. Thank you, I think. And your communication skills. I've just always been really clear. Sometimes people say, all right, you don't have to give me any more facts. And I'd like to think that I'm authentic and loving, have a loving, ruthless compassion for my friends, my family, my friends, and people who I meet. So in conclusion, I would like to recommend to all colleges and universities that they make students have part of their graduation 1 year of teaching. And of course, I prefer the 4th grade. Mr. President.